I want you to know something as we begin. There is a part of you that wants to be stronger. There is a part of you that knows you are capable of more than you are currently living. There is a part of you that recognizes that your life could be different, your results could be better, your impact could be greater if you could just get yourself to do the things that matter. And I'm speaking to that part of you right now. I see it. I recognize it. I understand the longing you carry. I understand the frustration of knowing what you should do and struggling to actually do it. I understand the gap between who you want to be and who you're actually being. I understand that this gap doesn't indicate laziness or lack of intelligence. It indicates something much deeper. It indicates a lack of discipline. Now, when I say discipline, I'm not talking about punishment. I'm not talking about forcing yourself through pain. I'm not talking about white-knuckling your way through life with grim determination. That's not discipline. That's just suffering. And suffering is not the goal. Suffering is not what transforms us. Discipline in its truest form is something much gentler and much more powerful. Discipline is the capacity to do what matters, even when it's not easy. Discipline is the ability to direct your energy toward your values and your purpose, even when other things are more comfortable, more convenient, more immediately gratifying. Discipline is the practice of aligning your daily actions with your deepest beliefs about who you are and who you are called to become. And here's what I want you to understand. You already have this capacity. You already have discipline. You've demonstrated it before. You've shown up for things that matter to you. You've pushed through difficulty when something was important enough. You've been consistent when you were committed. The discipline is in you. What you are struggling with is not the absence of discipline. You're struggling with directing your existing discipline toward things that actually matter. This is the message I want to plant in your heart today. Not that you need to become someone different, but that you need to redirect what you already have. Not that you are broken and need to be fixed, but that you're designed to walk in a particular way, and when you align yourself with that design, everything changes. I sense something in you as well. I sense that you are tired of starting and stopping, tired of making commitments and breaking them, tired of the inner conflict between who you want to be and who you're being, tired of the shame that comes when you don't follow through, tired of the cycle. And I want to tell you something important. That tiredness is not a sign of failure. That tiredness is a sign that you are alive. That tiredness is a sign that you care. That tiredness is a sign that there's a part of you that knows you are capable of more. And that knowing, even though it creates discomfort, even though it creates the friction between who you are and who you could be, that knowing is a gift. That knowing is what will eventually lead you to change. So today, I'm going to speak to you about building discipline, not through force, not through punishment, but through understanding, through alignment, through learning to walk with your nature rather than against it. Through discovering that discipline, when rightly understood, is actually one of the most liberating practices available to you. I'm going to show you 7 daily habits that, if practiced consistently, will build your discipline in a way that's sustainable, that's real, that actually works. Not habits that require willpower every single day, but habits that, once established, become the natural expression of who you are and what you value. And here's what I want you to know before we go deeper. The discipline you build through these habits will transform your life, not in a week, not in a month, but over time. As you practice these 7 habits again and again, you will become a different person. You will become someone who is aligned, someone who is intentional, someone who is moving toward their purpose rather than being pulled in different directions, someone who is becoming who God has called them to be. This is the promise of discipline, not restriction, not deprivation, but alignment, integration, wholeness, the becoming of who you already are deep down. So I invite you to stay with me. I invite you to hear me out. I invite you to consider that these 7 habits, practiced with intention and patience, could be the pathway to the life you actually want to live. Before we dive into the 7 habits, I need to establish something foundational. I need to help you understand what discipline actually is and how it works, because there's so much confusion about this. In our culture, we've turned discipline into something harsh. We've turned it into something associated with punishment and pain. We've made it sound like doing the right thing should be difficult, should require suffering, should demand sacrifice, and this understanding has created resistance. This understanding has made discipline feel like something to be avoided. But this is not what discipline is. Discipline is not about suffering. Discipline is about alignment. Discipline is about bringing your actions into harmony with your values. Discipline is about living in a way that's consistent with who you actually believe you are. Think about it this way. If you believe you're someone who values health, but you eat junk food every day, there's a misalignment. There's a conflict between your belief and your action. And that conflict creates discomfort. That conflict creates the feeling of failure. But here's what's interesting. Most people try to solve this problem by forcing themselves to change their eating habits. They white knuckle through it. They resist the junk food. They white knuckle through the cravings. And for a while, through sheer force of willpower, they might succeed. But eventually, the willpower runs out. Eventually, the resistance collapses. And they return to their old habits. But what if, instead of forcing yourself to change your behavior, you actually change your belief? What if you meditated on what health actually means to you? What if you connected with a deeper understanding of why health matters? What if you began to genuinely believe in your bones, not just intellectually, that you are someone who values their health? Then the behavior would naturally change, not through force, but through authentic alignment. This is what real discipline is. Real discipline is not about fighting yourself. Real discipline is about aligning yourself. It's about bringing your actions into harmony with your deepest values. And when you do that, when you achieve that alignment, something shifts. It becomes easier. It becomes natural. It becomes the way you simply are. Now, the reason discipline feels hard for most people is because they haven't done this inner work. They are trying to change their behavior without changing their beliefs. They are trying to force themselves to do things that don't align with how they see themselves. And when your actions don't align with your self-image, when you're trying to do something that doesn't match who you believe you are, it requires tremendous willpower. It's exhausting. It doesn't last. So the first principle I want to establish is this. Discipline begins with understanding. It begins with clarity about who you are and what you value. It begins with aligning your internal beliefs with external actions. When you achieve that alignment, discipline stops being something you force and becomes something you naturally express. This is liberating. This means that building discipline is not about finding more willpower. It's about developing deeper clarity. It's about becoming more yourself, not about becoming someone different. The second principle I want to establish is this. Discipline is built through repetition, not through intensity. This is crucial. Most people approach building discipline the way they approach dieting. They go all in. They change everything at once. They approach it with intensity and determination. And for a while, the intensity carries them. But intensity is not sustainable. Intensity burns out. Intensity leads to burnout. But repetition is sustainable. Repetition is how you actually build new patterns. Repetition is how you train your brain to think differently, to respond differently, to be different. This is why the 7 habits I'm going to share with you are not intense, they are not overwhelming, they are simple, they are small, they are designed to be repeatable. Think about learning an instrument. You don't become good at an instrument through intense practice sessions once a week. You become good through daily practice. You become good through showing up again and again, practicing the same fundamentals, reinforcing the same patterns, and gradually, almost without you noticing it, you become skillful. Your life is the same way. You build discipline the same way, not through intense sprints, but through consistent daily repetition. Not through trying to change everything at once, but through practicing one small habit until it becomes automatic, then adding another habit, then another. The third principle is this: discipline is not against you. This is so important. Discipline is not something that restricts your freedom. Discipline is what creates freedom. This is counterintuitive, but it's true. Think about a musician. The musician practices scales. The musician practices technique. The musician is disciplined about the fundamentals. And what happens? That discipline creates the freedom to play. That discipline creates the capacity to express music in a way that someone without discipline cannot. The discipline which looks restrictive from the outside actually creates tremendous freedom. Your life works the same way. When you're undisciplined, when you're reactive, when you're bouncing around from one thing to another, you actually have less freedom. You're trapped by your impulses, you're controlled by your moods, you're enslaved to whatever is most immediately gratifying. But when you develop discipline, when you practice the daily habits that align you with your values, something changes. You become free. You're no longer controlled by impulse. You're no longer enslaved to mood. You're free to move toward what actually matters. This is the promise of discipline. Not restriction, but freedom. Not against you, but for you. Discipline is the path to living as who you really are. So as we go through these 7 habits, I want you to keep this in mind. These are not habits designed to make your life harder. These are not habits designed to punish you or restrict you. These are habits designed to align you with who you already are. These are habits designed to free you. These are habits designed to make you the person you actually want to be. Now let me talk about why we need these habits in the first place. Why can't we just live naturally? Why do we need structure? Why do we need discipline? The answer has to do with the nature of our minds and the nature of our world. Our minds are designed by nature to take the path of least resistance. Our brains are wired to preserve energy, to avoid discomfort, to seek immediate gratification. This was useful when we were living in a dangerous environment where saving energy could mean the difference between survival and death. But in our modern world, where we have abundant food and safety and comfort, this wiring works against us. Our natural tendencies pull us toward comfort, toward distraction, toward immediate gratification. And these natural tendencies don't lead to the life we actually want. So we need discipline. We need structure. We need habits that deliberately, intentionally move us toward what matters, even when our natural inclination is to move towards something else. Not because our natural inclinations are evil, but because our natural inclinations were designed for a different world than the one we're living in. And this is where the 7 habits come in. These are not habits designed to violate your nature. These are habits designed to direct your nature toward growth. These are habits designed to align your daily actions with your deepest values and your ultimate purpose. Let me introduce them now. The 7 daily habits that will build your discipline are: first, morning spiritual alignment. Beginning your day by connecting with God, clarifying your purpose, and setting your intention for the day ahead. Second, deliberate learning. Committing time each day to learning, reading books, listening to teachings, gaining wisdom that fits your growth. Third, physical discipline. Taking care of your body through exercise, nutrition, and rest, not from vanity, but from understanding that your body is the temple where your spirit lives. Fourth, intentional thinking. Practicing the discipline of controlling your thoughts, refocusing your mind when it wanders, and deliberately choosing what you meditate on. Fifth, strategic service. Spending time in serving others and serving your purpose, understanding that this is not separate from building discipline, but central to it. Sixth, wise stewardship. Managing your resources, time, money, attention with care and intention. Recognizing that small choices compound over time. Seventh, restorative rest. Practicing the discipline of rest and reflection, understanding that building discipline includes the discipline to pause, to recover, to prepare for what's ahead. These are the 7, and I want you to hear this. They are not 7 separate things. They are not 7 burdensome tasks. They are 7 interlocking practices that, when done together, create a way of life. There are 7 practices that, when lived consistently, transform you from the inside out. Now, I'm going to dive deeper into each one. But before I do, I want to address something that I know many of you are thinking. I know you're thinking, that's 7 things, that's too much. I can barely manage what I'm already doing. How am I supposed to add 7 new habits? And I hear this, I understand this, I want to address it directly. You are not going to do all 7 at once. That would be overwhelming. That would set you up for failure. That would be contrary to everything I've just taught you about how discipline is built. Instead, what I want you to do is this. Choose one habit. Choose the one that resonates with you most, the one that seems most important, the one that seems most doable, and commit to practicing that one habit for a week or 2 or 3 until it becomes automatic, until it becomes something you do without thinking about it, until it becomes part of who you are. Then, once you've integrated the first habit, once it's become automatic, you add the second habit, and you practice both of them together until they've become automatic, and then you add the third. This way, you're building discipline gradually, you're building it sustainably, you're not overwhelming yourself, you're not trying to change everything at once. You're doing what actually works, which is consistent, incremental progress. So as you listen to me describe these 7 habits, I want you to identify which one is calling to you. Which one do you feel most drawn to? Which one do you sense is most important for where you are right now? That's the one to start with. Okay, let's go deeper. The first daily habit that will build your discipline is what I call morning spiritual alignment. This is the practice of beginning your day by connecting with God, clarifying your purpose, and setting your intention. Now, I've talked about this in other messages, but I want to ground it specifically in the context of discipline, because the connection is deep. Discipline is fundamentally about alignment. And the most powerful place to establish that alignment is at the beginning of your day, before the day's demands begin, before you're pulled in different directions. In that quiet space at the beginning of the day, you have the opportunity to connect with something larger than yourself. You have the opportunity to remember who you are. You have the opportunity to clarify what matters. And when you do this consistently, when you begin every day in this alignment, it becomes the foundation for discipline. Here's why this works. When you start your day in a state of spiritual connection, when you begin your day having reminded yourself of your values and your purpose, you establish a baseline. You establish a context. And everything that happens during the day happens within that context. When a challenge comes, when a temptation comes, when a distraction comes, you're not starting from zero. You've already established the frame. You've already said, this is who I am, these are my values, this is what matters to me. Without this morning alignment, you're starting each day as a blank slate. You're starting each day vulnerable to whatever comes at you. You're starting each day without a frame, without a context. And so you are easily pushed off course. You're easily distracted. You're easily pulled toward things that don't actually matter to you. But with morning alignment, you're starting each day anchored. You're starting each day grounded. You're starting each day with a clarity about what matters. And that clarity, that groundedness, that anchoring, that is what allows you to practice discipline. So what does morning spiritual alignment look like practically? It's simple. You wake up, you spend time, maybe 15 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, depending on your schedule, in a quiet space. And in that space, you do 3 things. First, you connect with God. You pray, you acknowledge His presence in your life, you bring your heart before Him. You might say something like, God, I recognize that you are with me. I acknowledge your presence. I ask for your guidance today. Help me to be aligned with your purposes. The exact words don't matter. What matters is that you are creating the space for connection. Second, you clarify your purpose. You remind yourself of why you are here. You remind yourself of what you are called to do. You remind yourself of the person you are becoming. You might ask yourself, what matters most today? What would it look like to live with intention today? Who do I want to be? Again, the exact questions don't matter. What matters is that you are creating clarity. Third, you set your intention. Based on that clarification, you consciously choose how you want to show up today. You set a tone. You establish a direction. You might say, today I choose to be patient. Today I choose to be generous. Today I choose to move toward my goals with focus and intention. This practice done daily becomes the foundation for everything else, because you are starting your day not from a state of unconsciousness, not from a state of reaction, but from a state of alignment. You are starting your day having deliberately positioned yourself toward your values and your purpose. And what happens over time as you practice this consistently, your entire day shifts, your choices shift, the way you respond to challenges shifts, the way you treat people shifts. Everything shifts because you've established a different baseline. You've established a different context. This is why this is the first habit. This is why I'm encouraging you to start here. If this is the habit that's calling to you, because this habit has the power to transform everything else. This habit creates the foundation upon which all the other habits rest. Now, I want to address something I know many of you are thinking. You might be thinking, I'm not a religious person. I'm not sure how to pray. I'm not sure how to connect with God. And I want to tell you something important. Prayer is not complicated. Connecting with God is not something that requires special knowledge or special words. Prayer is simply speaking your truth to God. Prayer is simply saying what's in your heart. Prayer is simply acknowledging that there's something larger than yourself and you are opening yourself to connect with it. You might say, God, I don't even know if I believe in you, but I'm open. I'm willing to try. Help me. That's a prayer. That's enough. God meets you where you are. God honors the intention. What matters is not that your prayer is perfect or eloquent. What matters is that you're showing up. What matters is that you're creating the space. Or if you're not comfortable with the word God, if that word carries too much baggage or history for you, then think of this as connecting with the universe or the source or the higher purpose or the truth that's larger than your individual self. The label matters less than the experience. What matters is that you're stepping out of yourself, that you're connecting with something larger, that you are aligning yourself with that larger truth. The second part of morning spiritual alignment, clarifying your purpose and setting your intention. This is something that doesn't require belief in God at all. This is something that anyone can do. This is simply the practice of getting clear about what matters and how you want to show up that day. So I want to encourage you, don't let resistance to the spiritual language stop you from practicing this habit. Start where you are. Use the language that feels true to you. Do the practice in a way that makes sense to you, but do it because this practice, whatever you call it, is transformative. The second daily habit that will build your discipline is deliberate learning. This is the practice of committing time each day to learning, reading, listening, gaining wisdom that feeds your growth. Now, learning is different from mere information consumption. Learning is not scrolling through social media or watching random videos or listening to podcasts passively. Learning is deliberate. It's intentional. It's focused on becoming more, knowing more, understanding more deeply. Why is this a discipline builder? Because learning requires focus. Learning requires the capacity to sit with something difficult, to walk through it, to integrate it. Learning requires the kind of sustained attention that's increasingly rare in our world. And when you practice this capacity through learning, you're building the same capacity that you need for discipline. Think about it. Discipline is at its core the capacity to focus your attention where it matters, to maintain that focus even when it's difficult, to walk through resistance. These are the exact same skills you develop when you are learning something challenging. So what does deliberate learning look like? It could be reading a book, it could be listening to a podcast or teaching that challenges you and stretches you. It could be taking a class, it could be studying scripture. The specific form doesn't matter. What matters is that you're spending time daily learning something that matters, something that feeds your growth, something that challenges you. And here's something important. Your deliberate learning should align with your growth edges. It should be something that stretches you, something that challenges you, something that's slightly beyond where you are now, not so far beyond that is discouraging, but far enough that it requires your full attention and your genuine engagement. When you practice this daily, when you spend time every day learning, something shifts. Your brain becomes more plastic. Your capacity for learning increases. Your willingness to engage with difficulty increases. And all of these things transfer into the rest of your life. All of these things strengthen your ability to practice discipline. I would recommend that you spend at least 20 or 30 minutes a day on deliberate learning. And I would especially recommend that some of this learning be spiritual. Read the Bible. Listen to teachings about God and faith and the spiritual life, because building discipline is fundamentally a spiritual practice, and feeding your spirit is essential. The third daily habit that will build your discipline is physical discipline. This is the practice of taking care of your body through exercise, nutrition, and rest. Now, I want to be careful here, because I've seen physical discipline become distorted. I've seen it become something obsessive, something based on self-hatred rather than self-love. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is simple stewardship. Your body is where you live. Your body is the vessel through which you move through the world. Your body houses your mind, your emotions, your spirit. And when you take care of your body, when you honor it, when you treat it with respect, something shifts. Physical discipline doesn't have to be intense. It doesn't have to be going to the gym for 3 hours a day. It could be a 30-minute walk. It could be a simple exercise routine. It could be yoga. It could be stretching. What matters is that you are moving your body, that you are engaging with it, that you are honoring it. And nutrition. This doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be a strict diet. It could be as simple as choosing to eat 1 meal a day that's nourishing rather than convenient. It could be drinking water instead of soda. It could be choosing vegetables instead of junk food more often than not. The point is not perfection. The point is intention. The point is showing yourself that you care enough about your body to make conscious choices about what you put in it. And rest. This is so important and is so often neglected. Rest is not laziness. Rest is not weakness. Rest is essential. Your body needs rest. Your mind needs rest. Your spirit needs rest. And when you honor that need, when you get enough sleep, when you give yourself time to recover, something shifts. Your capacity for everything else increases. Why is physical discipline a builder of overall discipline? Because when you practice it, you are training yourself to do things that aren't immediately gratifying for the sake of long-term benefit. You're training yourself to move your body even when you rather sit on the couch. You're training yourself to eat well even when junk food tastes better in the moment. You're training yourself to rest even when there's more to do. And these skills, these are the exact skills you need for discipline in every area of your life. When you practice physical discipline, you are literally rewiring your brain. You are teaching your brain that you are someone who does what they say they are going to do, even when it's not easy. You're teaching your brain that you care about yourself enough to make good choices. You're teaching your brain that delayed gratification is worth it. And once your brain learns these lessons through your body, it applies them everywhere. The fourth daily habit that will build your discipline is intentional thinking. This is the practice of controlling your thoughts, refocusing your mind when it wanders, and deliberately choosing what you meditate on. Most of us have never been trained in the discipline of thinking. Most of us let our thoughts run wild. We let our minds wander where they want. We let our thoughts be determined by our circumstances, by our moods, by what we see on our screens. And we wonder why we feel out of control. But your thoughts determine your life. Your thoughts shape your emotions, which shape your actions, which shape your results. So if you can discipline your thoughts, if you can intentionally choose what you think about, you can change your entire life. This doesn't mean positive thinking. This doesn't mean pretending everything is great when it's not. This means simply being aware of your thoughts. This means noticing when your thoughts are pulling you toward anxiety or despair or anger. This means gently redirecting your thoughts toward what's true, what's real, what matters. One practice that's helpful for this is meditation. Meditation is not mystical. Meditation is not about clearing your mind. Meditation is simply the practice of sitting quietly and observing your thoughts without judgment. And when you notice your mind wandering, you gently bring it back again and again, over and over. This practice trains your mind. This practice develops the capacity to direct your attention where you want it to go. This practice builds the mental discipline that transfers into every area of your life. You might spend 15 or 20 minutes a day in meditation or prayer, simply sitting quietly and practicing the discipline of focusing your mind. You might spend time deliberately thinking about something that matters, writing about it, pondering it, reflecting on it. You might practice the discipline of reading something meaningful and really thinking about it, letting it sink in, meditating on it. And here's something powerful. Most of the thoughts you think are automatic. They are habits. But habits can change. Your thought patterns can change. And when you practice intentional thinking every day, your thought patterns do change. You become someone who naturally thinks about what matters. You become someone who naturally focuses on what's real and true. You become someone whose mind works for you rather than against you. The fifth daily habit that will build your discipline is strategic service. This is the practice of spending time in serving others and serving your purpose. Now, this might seem counterintuitive. You might think, aren't I supposed to be focused on building my own discipline? How does serving others help with that? And the answer is profound. When you serve others, when you focus on something beyond yourself, something remarkable happens. Your perspective shifts. Your priorities become clearer. And the discipline that you build through service is some of the deepest discipline you can build. Think about it. When you are serving others, when you are focused on meeting someone else's needs, your own resistance becomes smaller. The obstacles that would have stopped you if you were doing something for yourself become manageable because you're doing it for someone else. Your motivation becomes bigger than your resistance. And more than that, serving others keeps you connected to what matters. It keeps you connected to the reality that your life is not just about you. It keeps you connected to the truth that you have something to give. It keeps you connected to purpose. So what does strategic service look like? It could be volunteering your time and skills for a cause you care about. It could be mentoring someone who's where you were before. It could be serving your church or your community. It could be supporting someone in your family or your circle. The specific form doesn't matter. What matters is that you are dedicating some part of your day, some of your energy, some of your capacity to serving beyond yourself. And notice I said strategic. This is important. Service is not about depleting yourself. Service is not about saying yes to everything. Service is about being intentional about where you put your energy, about serving in ways that align with your gifts and your calling. When you practice this daily, when you regularly serve, something shifts in your character. You become someone who is oriented toward others. You become someone who is focused on what matters. You become someone whose life has meaning beyond yourself. The sixth daily habit that will build your discipline is wise stewardship. This is the practice of managing your resources, time, money, attention with care and intention. Most of us are not intentional about our resources. Most of us let our time be stolen. Most of us let our money go untracked. most of us let our attention be captured by anything that demands it. And then we wonder why we feel like we're not making progress. But when you practice wise stewardship, when you are intentional about how you use your resources, something changes. You begin to understand that every small choice matters. You begin to understand that a little bit consistently compounds over time. You begin to understand that being a good steward of what you have is the path to having more to steward. Wise stewardship looks like tracking where your time goes. It looks like knowing how you're spending your money. It looks like being intentional about what you give your attention to. It looks like saying no to things that aren't aligned with your priorities so that you can say yes to things that are. And here's something powerful. When you practice wise stewardship in the small things, the discipline transfers to the big things. When you are careful about how you spend an hour, you become someone who's careful about how you spend your days. When you are intentional about spending small amounts of money wisely, you become someone who's thoughtful about large financial decisions. I would recommend that you spend time each day, maybe 10 or 15 minutes, thinking about and managing your resources. Write down what you spent your time on. Check your spending. Look at what you gave your attention to and ask yourself, is this aligned with my values? Am I being a good steward? The 7th daily habit that will build your discipline is restorative rest. This is the practice of intentionally resting, reflecting, and preparing for what's ahead. Now, this might seem like it goes against discipline. You might think, isn't discipline about pushing hard, about going the extra mile, about never stopping? No. True discipline includes rest. In fact, rest is a crucial part of building discipline, because you cannot sustain effort without rest. Your body breaks down, your mind breaks down, your spirit breaks down. And when you break down, when you are exhausted, you lose the capacity for discipline. But when you intentionally rest, when you deliberately create space for recovery, when you practice the discipline of pausing, something shifts. Your capacity increases, your resilience increases, your willingness to engage with difficulty increases. Restorative rest doesn't have to be a vacation. It doesn't have to be a whole day off. It could be an hour in the evening when you put aside all demands and just rest. It could be a walk in nature. It could be sitting quietly. It could be doing something you love that feels restorative. And reflection is part of this too. In that restful space, you reflect. You think about your day. You think about what you learned. You think about what you want to do differently tomorrow. You prepare yourself mentally and emotionally and spiritually for what's ahead. When you practice this daily, when you consistently give yourself time to rest and reflect, your life becomes more integrated. You're not just pushing. You're also pausing, recovering, preparing, and that rhythm, effort and rest, action and reflection, pushing and pausing, that rhythm is sustainable. That rhythm is what allows you to build discipline that actually lasts. So those are the 7 habits: morning spiritual alignment, deliberate learning, physical discipline, intentional thinking, strategic service, wise stewardship, restorative, rest. And I want to be clear, these are not add-ons to your life. These are not things you do in addition to everything else you're doing. These are the things that reshape your life. When you practice this consistently, everything else becomes easier because you become different. You become more disciplined, you become more intentional, you become more aligned. And from that place of alignment and intention, everything else flows. Now let me ground this in scripture, because this is not just psychology or productivity hacks. This is rooted in the deepest truths of how God has revealed himself and how we are called to live. Proverbs 22:3, NKJV. A prudent man foresees evil and hides himself, but the simple pass on and are punished. The Bible speaks again and again about the virtue of discipline, the virtue of being prudent, the virtue of making choices with intention and foresight. And here in this verse, the proverb is contrasting the prudent person with the simple person. The prudent person sees what's coming and prepares. The simple person doesn't prepare and is caught off guard. This is what discipline does. Discipline develops prudence. Discipline develops the capacity to see what's coming and to prepare. When you practice the 7 habits, when you are intentional about your growth, when you are paying attention to your thoughts and your choices, you develop prudence. You develop the capacity to see where you're heading and to make adjustments before crisis comes. Proverbs 5:23, NKJV. He will die for lack of discipline, and in the greatness of his folly, he will go astray. This is strong language. The Bible is saying that lack of discipline leads to death, spiritual death, relational death, the death of your potential. When you lack discipline, when you let yourself be blown around by impulse, when you don't direct your life intentionally toward your purpose, you go astray. You end up somewhere you didn't intend. You end up living a life that's not actually aligned with who you are. But when you practice discipline, when you practice the 7 habits, you're literally choosing life. You're choosing to move toward your purpose. You're choosing to become who God has called you to be. 1 Corinthians 9:24-7, NKJV. Do you not know that those who run in a race all run, but one receives the prize? Run in such a way that you may obtain it. And everyone who competes for the prize is temperate in all things. Now they do it to obtain a perishable crown, but we for an imperishable crown. Therefore I run thus, not with uncertainty. Thus I fight, not as one who beats the air, but I discipline my body and bring it into subjection, lest when I have preached to others, I myself should become disqualified. Paul is using the metaphor of athletic training. He's saying that running a race requires discipline. Your body must be trained. Your focus must be sharp. You must be temperate in all things, which means you are exercising self-control. You're not indulging every impulse. You're not eating whatever you want or doing whatever you feel like. You're disciplining yourself because you're running toward a goal. And then Paul adds something profound. He says he disciplines his body lest I myself should become disqualified. He's saying that lack of discipline doesn't just slow you down. It can disqualify you entirely. It can prevent you from fulfilling your purpose. This is why the 7 habits matter. This is why you are practicing them. You're not practicing them just to feel good or to be more productive. You're practicing them because your purpose matters. Your calling matters. And fulfilling that calling requires discipline. 2 Timothy 2:15, NKJV. Be diligent to present yourself to God as a worker approved, rightly dividing the word of truth. Timothy is being told to be diligent, to be disciplined, to walk in such a way that you are approved. You're walking toward the approval of God, not of people. You're walking with excellence, not to impress others, but because you respect God. And notice the context. Rightly dividing the word of truth. You're handling truth carefully. You're being thoughtful about what matters. You're not being careless or casual. You're being diligent. You're being disciplined. When you practice the 7 habits, especially deliberate learning and intentional thinking, you're practicing this kind of diligence. You're treating truth carefully. You're being thoughtful about what you believe, what you think, what you spend your time on. You're presenting yourself to God as a worker who is serious about their work. Hebrews 12:11, NKJV. Now no chastening seems joyful for the present, but painful. Nevertheless, afterward it yields the peaceable fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it. This verse is about discipline in the sense of correction and training. It's saying that the process of discipline is not always pleasant. It's often painful, but afterward it yields fruit. It yields righteousness. It yields the fruit of a life lived in alignment. This is an important truth. Building discipline is not always comfortable. Practicing these 7 habits requires effort. It requires commitment. It requires choosing to do what matters rather than what feels good in the moment. But the result is worth it. The result is a life that's aligned that's purposeful, that bears fruit. Philippians 4:8-9, NKJV. Finally, brethren, whatever things are true, whatever things are noble, whatever things are just, whatever things are pure, whatever things are lovely, whatever things are of good report, if there is any virtue, and if there is anything praiseworthy, meditate on these things. The things which you learned and received and heard and saw in me, these do, and the God of peace will be with you. Paul is talking about intentional thinking. He's telling you to deliberately choose what you think about. He's telling you to focus your mind on what's true, what's noble, what's just, what's pure. This is the practice of intentional thinking that I talked about in the 7 habits. And then he says, do these things. He's saying that belief is not enough, understanding is not enough. You have to actually practice, you have to actually live out these principles. And when you do, the God of peace will be with you. This is the promise. When you practice discipline, when you practice the 7 habits, when you intentionally direct your thoughts and your actions toward what matters, God's peace becomes your constant companion. Psalm 1:1-2, NKJV. Blessed is the man who has not walked in the counsel of the ungodly, nor stood in the path of sinners, nor sat in the seat of the scornful, but his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law he meditates day and night. This is describing a disciplined life. This person has chosen carefully who they listen to and what influences them. They've chosen to delight in God's law. They meditate on it day and night. This is not someone who is passive. This is someone who is actively, intentionally directing their life toward what matters. And notice the result. This person is blessed. Not because they are perfect or because they never struggle, but because they are intentional, they are disciplined. They are directing their life toward God and toward goodness. This is the promise to you. When you practice the 7 habits, when you become someone who is intentional and disciplined, you position yourself for blessing. You align yourself with God's purposes, and in that alignment, blessing flows. Proverbs 4:23, NKJV. Keep your heart with all diligence, for out of it spring the issues of life. Your heart is your core. Your heart is what drives you. And the Bible is saying that you must keep your heart with diligence. You must guard it. You must be intentional about what you allow into your heart, what you think about, what you believe. And here's why. Out of it spring the issues of life. Everything that comes out of your life, your actions, your words, your choices, they all spring from your heart. So if you want to change your life, you have to keep your heart with diligence. You have to be careful about what you're putting in. You have to be intentional about what you're allowing to shape you. This is what the 7 habits do. They help you keep your heart with diligence. Morning alignment helps you center your heart on what matters. Deliberate learning feeds your heart with truth. Physical discipline teaches your heart to honor your body. Intentional thinking guards your heart from destructive thoughts. Service opens your heart to others. Stewardship trains your heart in wisdom. Rest and reflection heal your heart and prepare it for what's ahead. Now let me speak directly to your heart about the real struggles you face when trying to build discipline. Many of you feel like you've tried before and failed. You've made commitments and broken them. You've started habits and stopped them. You've seen others be disciplined while you struggle, and you've internalized a story about yourself. I'm just not a disciplined person. I don't have the willpower. I don't have the strength. And I want to gently challenge that story. That story is not true. The truth is that discipline is not something you either have or don't have. Discipline is a skill. It's a capacity that can be developed. And the fact that you failed before doesn't mean you can't succeed. It means you haven't found the right approach yet. The problem is not that you lack discipline. The problem is likely one of these. You are trying too hard, too fast. You're trying to change everything at once instead of incrementally. You're not clear enough on your why you're doing things because you think you should, not because you genuinely believe they matter. You're trying to force change through willpower instead of through alignment. You're not being consistent. You're expecting instant results and getting discouraged when they don't come. All of these are fixable. This is why I've emphasized incremental change. This is why I'm telling you to start with one habit. This is why I'm telling you to clarify your why. This is why I'm telling you that discipline is about alignment, not force. And here's something else I want to address. Many of you feel like discipline is limiting. You feel like if you commit to these habits, if you follow these practices, you'll be giving up freedom. You'll be trapped, you'll be restricted. And I understand why you feel this way, but it's actually backwards. The truth is that lack of discipline is what restricts you. When you are undisciplined, when you are reactive, when you are just following impulse, you are actually trapped. You're trapped by your impulses, you're trapped by your moods. You're trapped by what's most immediately gratifying. But when you develop discipline, when you practice these 7 habits, you become free. You're free to move toward what actually matters. You're free from being controlled by impulse. You're free to become who you want to be. This freedom is real and it's available to you. It's just on the other side of the decision to practice discipline. Many of you also struggle with consistency. You do the habit for a few days or a few weeks, and then something throws you off. You miss a day, and then you miss another day, and then you stop entirely. And then you feel like you failed, so you don't try again. And here's what I want to tell you. Missing a day is not failure. Missing 2 days is not failure. Stopping and starting again is not failure. Failure would be giving up permanently. Failure would be deciding that you can't do this and never trying again. But if you stop and then start again, if you miss a day and the next day you show up again, if you fall short and then recommit, that's not failure, that's learning. That's the actual path of growth. In fact, I would say this: be ready to fail. Expect that you will miss days. Expect that you will get off track. Expect that you will struggle. And when it happens, which it will, know that it doesn't mean you can't do this. It just means you're human. It just means you're growing. It just means you need to get back up and try again. There's a concept in psychology called the abstinence violation effect. It says that people who are trying to build new habits often give up after one slip up. They think, well, I've already failed, I might as well give up. But the actual result of one slip up is just one slip up, not permanent failure. The permanent failure comes from the giving up, not from the slip up itself. So I'm telling you in advance, you will slip up, you will miss days. It's okay. It's part of the process. What matters is that you don't let one slip up become a reason to give up. What matters is that you get back up and try again. Another struggle many of you face is comparison. You look at other people who seem to have discipline. You look at their lives and think, how are they doing that? They seem to make it look so easy. And then you look at your own struggle and think, why can't I do this? What's wrong with me? And what you are seeing is the end result of discipline, not the process. You are seeing someone who is living the fruit of their discipline, but you're not seeing the daily practice that got them there. You're not seeing the days when they didn't feel like it and did it anyway. You're not seeing the times when they fell short and got back up. You're not seeing the incremental progress that compounds over time. What I want you to know is this: everyone who has discipline started where you are. Everyone who is living a disciplined life had a moment when they decided to try. And then they had another moment when they tried again after failing, and then another. And over time, the practice became natural. So if someone else has it, you can have it too. It's not because they are better or stronger or more gifted. It's because they committed to the practice and they stuck with it over time. And you can do the same thing. I want to speak now about something deeper. I want to speak about the spiritual dimension of discipline, because discipline is not just psychological. Discipline is fundamentally spiritual. Here's what I mean. When you practice discipline, when you consistently choose to do what matters instead of what feels good in the moment, you are practicing something that's very spiritual. You are practicing the ability to transcend impulse. You're practicing the capacity to live from your values rather than from your circumstances. You're practicing what the spiritual traditions have always called mastery. Mastery is not about controlling others. Mastery is about controlling yourself. Mastery is about being the author of your own life rather than being controlled by circumstances. Mastery is about alignment with what's true and real and good. And here's what's remarkable. Every spiritual tradition, without exception, emphasizes discipline as a path to spiritual development. Whether it's Christianity or Buddhism or Islam or Hinduism or any other tradition, discipline is seen as fundamental to spiritual growth. Why? Because discipline trains your consciousness, discipline trains your will, discipline trains your capacity to choose what's real over what feels comfortable. And all of these things are the foundation of spiritual development. When you practice the 7 habits, when you meditate and pray, when you study scripture, when you serve others, when you care for your body, when you think intentionally, you're not just building productivity, habits, you're building a spiritual life. You're building a consciousness that's awake, that's aware, that's aligned with something larger than yourself. And here's the beautiful part. As your spiritual consciousness develops, as you become more awake, more aware, more aligned, discipline becomes easier. Not because you're forcing yourself, but because you're connecting more directly with what matters. You're connecting more directly with God. And in that connection, the desire to do what matters becomes natural. This is the transformation that happens when you practice discipline spiritually. You don't become a robot that forces itself to do things. You become someone who genuinely wants to do what matters because you are connected to what matters. You become someone who is living from alignment rather than from force. This is the promise of discipline. This is what's available to you. I want to address one more thing before we wrap up. I want to address the question of failure and how to recover from it. Because here's the truth. You will not be perfect at this. You will not practice all 7 habits every day. You will have days when you don't do any of them. You will have weeks when you get off track. You will have setbacks and regressions and times when you feel like you are back at square one. And that's okay. That's part of the process. That's not a failure. That's life. But what you do after the failure that matters. Because there's a difference between failing and staying failed. There's a difference between making a mistake and deciding that you're a person who makes mistakes. There's a difference between getting off track and giving up on the path. Here's what I want you to do when you fail. First, notice it without shame. Don't minimize it. Don't pretend it didn't happen. But also don't catastrophize it. Just notice, okay, I got off track. That happened. Second, investigate it with curiosity. What happened? What led to the failure? Was it that the habit wasn't right for you? Was it that something hard came up and you needed support? Was it that you lost connection with your why? Was it that you didn't have the right setup to make the habit easy? Investigate with genuine curiosity. Become a scientist studying your own behavior. Third, make a small adjustment. Based on what you learned, what would you do differently? Would you need to break the habit into smaller pieces? Would you need to adjust when you do it? Would you need more support? Would you need to clarify your why? Make a small, specific adjustment based on what you learned. Fourth, commit again. This is where the real discipline is. Not in never failing, but in committing again after you failed. In getting back up. In saying, okay, I'm going to try again, and this time I'm going to do it differently. And notice what happens. You fail, you adjust. You try again, you fail again, you adjust again. And slowly, gradually, over time, you find what works. You find the system that actually fits you. You find the rhythm that's sustainable, and the habits become part of who you are. This is how discipline is actually built. Not through perfect compliance, but through commitment to the process of growth. Not through never falling short, but through the willingness to get back up again and again and try again. And here's something I want you to know. That process, the falling and getting back up, that builds more character than perfect compliance ever would. Because falling and getting back up is where you learn resilience. That's where you learn that failure is not final. That's where you learn that you are bigger than your failures. That's where you learn to trust yourself, not because you are perfect, but because you keep trying. So I want to release you from the expectation of perfection. I want to invite you into the process of growth. The process is messy. The process includes failures. The process includes regressions. But the process is also beautiful. and the process works. And if you trust the process, if you stay committed to it, you will transform. Now let me speak some declarations over you. These are declarations of what becomes true when you practice discipline, when you practice the 7 habits. I am building a disciplined life, not through force, but through the consistent practice of what matters. Not through perfection, but through the commitment to the process. And over time, I am becoming someone different, someone more aligned, someone more intentional, someone who is moving toward their purpose rather than being pulled in different directions. My discipline is a reflection of my values. It shows that I care about my growth. It shows that I care about my future. It shows that I believe in myself and I'm willing to invest in that belief. My discipline is not restrictive. My discipline is liberating. It frees me from the control of impulse. It frees me to become who I really am. I trust the process of growth. I trust that consistency compounds. I trust that small daily habits practiced over time create transformation. I trust that I don't need to see the whole path to start walking it. I trust that I just need to take the next step and then the next step after that. When I fail, I don't stay failed. When I get off track, I get back on. When I fall short, I get back up. And in that commitment to keep trying, I'm building resilience. I'm building character. I'm building the kind of discipline that actually lasts because it's rooted in commitment to growth, not in rigid rules. I am becoming the person I'm called to be. Every day that I practice the 7 habits, I am becoming more aligned. I am becoming more awake. I am becoming more connected to my purpose. I am becoming more free. And that becoming is not something I have to earn. It's something I simply step into. When I commit to the practices, my life is not an accident. My life is not something that just happens to me. My life is something I'm actively creating through my daily choices. And I'm creating it intentionally. I'm creating it towards something that matters. I'm creating it toward the person I'm called to be. Let me close with a prayer for you as you begin or continue this journey of building discipline. Father, I come before you recognizing that true discipline comes from you. It's not something I have to manufacture through willpower or force. It's something that flows when I'm aligned with you, when I'm connected to my purpose, when I'm oriented toward what matters. I'm asking you to help me practice these 7 habits. Help me to start with 1 habit, the one that matters most right now. Help me to commit to practicing it daily, not perfectly, but faithfully. Help me to understand that this is not about earning your love or proving my worth. It's about becoming more of who you created me to be. I'm asking you to give me the grace to fall and get back up. I know I will fail. I know I will miss days and get off track. And I'm asking for the strength to return again and again to these practices with compassion for myself, with understanding that the path is not linear but spiral. I'm asking you to help me connect with the why behind these habits. Help me to understand that they are not arbitrary, they are not restriction, they are the pathway to freedom. They are the pathway to alignment, they are the pathway to becoming who I'm called to be. And as I practice these habits, as I show up day after day, help me to feel the transformation. Help me to notice the subtle shifts in how I think, how I respond, who I am. Help me to recognize that I'm changing. Help me to feel the grace that's working in me. I commit these habits to you. I commit my growth to you. I commit my journey to you. I trust you. I trust the process. I trust that as I align myself with you through these daily practices, everything I need will be provided. Every obstacle will be navigated. Every weakness will become strength. Thank you for believing in me even when I don't believe in myself. Thank you for continuing to call me toward my purpose. Thank you for the gift of another day to practice, to grow, to become. Amen. As you go from here, I want you to know something. You have what it takes. You have the capacity to build discipline. You have the capacity to practice the 7 habits. You have the capacity to transform your life, not because you are special or gifted or extraordinary, but because you're human. Because you have the capacity to make choices. Because you have the capacity to commit to a process over time. Because you have the capacity to become. The question is not whether you can do this. The question is whether you will. The question is whether you are ready to commit. The question is whether you are ready to begin. If the answer is yes, then I want to encourage you, start today. Don't wait, don't prepare, don't get ready. Start today. Choose one habit, commit to practicing it today. And then commit to practicing it again tomorrow and the day after that. One day at a time, one habit at a time, one choice at a time. And as you do, as you practice consistency over time, you will feel something shift. You will feel yourself becoming stronger. You will feel yourself becoming more aligned. You will feel yourself becoming more free. And you will know in the deepest part of your being that you are moving toward your purpose. You are becoming who you are called to be. This is the power of discipline. This is the promise available to you. Go and build your life. Build it intentionally. Build it daily. Build it one habit at a time. Build it with faith. Build it with hope. Build it with the confidence that you can, that you will, that you are already beginning. The journey is yours to take. And I believe in you.